Hey everybody, it's time for your monthly why the fuck did I make all this shit I made video, also known as Behind the Scenes. I should change the title to that other one, it's a better name. We're gonna go through all the shit I've released in the last month since the previous Behind the Scenes vlog, and explain why it came together and how it came together, if there is such a thing. So, starting with the end of month content roundup from August 1st. Which at the top of the list is the Fate Apocrypha and Made in Abyss podcasts. These were kind of explained in the middle of them, but basically it was just me and Best Guy Ever had planned from the beginning of the Eromanga Sensei podcast that if it was successful, I would do another one the next season and move it to the main channel. Because Eromanga Sensei videos were great, and people were saying it should be main channel content. Like, that comment was left all the time on those videos, like, this should be on the main channel. I was like, I agree, this is great stuff, but we wanted to test the gimmick and make sure it would actually work, that we'd have things to say about a show all the way through. So we tried to pick the same kind of show, something that was really popular, kind of middle of the road. And we would have done Kakegurui, but we both watched it and had nothing to say about it. We were like, we won't be able to talk about this show every week. It's way too uninteresting. Then we watched Fate Apocrypha, and it was a fucking nightmare, but we figured maybe this will work. So we went for it, and the podcast itself was fun to do because we talked about Fate in general so much, and we had all these different kinds of comments about the general nature of the show, but it felt like there's nothing we're going to have to say about each episode individually. Like, pretty much all of our comments could have been made about just the first episode. 2 and 3 were irrelevant, and we did 3 at once. And, yeah, it just didn't feel right, and then the response to it was not very good, because it pissed off a whole lot of Fate fans, and people didn't seem to want it on the main channel, because the people on After Dark were saying, this content should be on the main channel, well, the people on the main channel were saying, put this back on After Dark, we don't want to hear unscripted shit, that's why we don't sub After Dark. And I was like, oh, well, you know, so it wasn't going well, and I just didn't want to have to watch the show every week. So then I went through down the list and watched the first episodes of a few more shows. I thought they were all shit until I saw Made in Abyss. And the first episode was so fucking fantastic that I was like, okay, this is our show. Let's go for it. So we went for it, and we loved the first 3 episodes. We had a great podcast about it, and I really felt like, oh, this is going to be so cool because it'll be the exact opposite of Eromanga Sensei. That one was us ripping apart every little detail, and Made in Abyss will be gushing over every little detail. But then, the show got really slow, and not that much interesting stuff was happening, and it kind of became more of a very typical reaction podcast. Like, you know, there's tons and tons of people who will just, like, watch a chapter and be like, oh, so this happened, that was cool and interesting, and that's kind of what this show became. Like, there's not a lot of analytical shit going on, except for us whining about the quality of the show degrading. So yeah, we ended up doing 7 episodes, and I'm canceling it. We're just going to revisit the show once it's over and maybe share our final thoughts, but it just didn't turn out well. Like, it's exactly what I was afraid would happen when I came up with the idea of doing a weekly podcast about a show. You know, that the middle episodes will be boring and there won't be much to say, and it'll ruin the show for me because I hate watching stuff weekly, and that's exactly what happened. So yeah, Made in Abyss weekly canceled, but, you know, that's why it happened. So then we go on, and I've got the beginning of my new music channel. Kendrick Lamar is the backbone of the hip-hop zeitgeist. This was the result of, you know, I've been making music content for a while, and I recently, when I moved into this new place, I wanted to, like, bring back Digibro After Dark in a big way by releasing a bunch of vlogs all at once. And I already talked about these vlogs before, but it was like the TV on 10 lyrical analysis and then a couple of others that I released all at once, and they were really great vlogs. Like, I felt like, oh man, I just resurrected the channel in a really solid way. Like, after months of not really having as much stuff come out because I've been traveling, here's these 3 great videos. But the view counts on them weren't that great. Like, they weren't what I would have expected from people being as starved for After Dark content as it seemed like they were. Why is no one watching this stuff? It's because people just don't pay much attention to the music analysis. And I've gotten so much better at it, because in the early days, of me talking about music. If you go back and watch, like, the video on the lyrical analysis of Plenty of Girls in the Sea by MGMT, or if you watch my video about why I love My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy so much, those videos are very clumsy and awkward, and I seem really unconfident talking about music. And so I just kind of thought my music vlogs weren't good enough to, like, have their own channel, and that I didn't want to review new music. I didn't want to do album reviews. So, like, those were big problems. I just wanted to talk about music as it came to mind. And then when I did the videos on Coheed and Cambria and Mindless Self-Indulgence, the quality was like a considerable leap up. And people really seemed to like those videos who actually watched them. So, you know, I got more confident, and over the course of the year, I've been building up that confidence. And so with the TV on 10 video, I felt like that was a fantastic vlog. But it's trapped on a channel that people don't really care about music. And I thought, well, if I want to gain a fan base who does care about music to watch these videos, then they're not going to want to watch all the other shit about anime and my personal life, so let's just break it off into its own channel, and, like, have that channel grow naturally by itself. So that's what I did, and I want to say the hip-hop zeitgeist thing, the specific, that podcast, I forgot to mention this in the podcast, that it was inspired by a lyric from Kendrick on the song Yeah Right by Vince Staples from his album Big Fish Theory, which I was bumping really hard at the start of the month. And there's a lyric where Kendrick Lamar says, K. Twilight your zeitgeist. And just hearing him say the word zeitgeist, which I love the word zeitgeist, made me think about him relative to the zeitgeist and how there's been so much talk lately about hip-hop being the current dominant genre of the zeitgeist and stuff. And it made me think, man, Kendrick is kind of the guy at the head of that. So I made the video about it. And that was a great launch to the channel. And, you know, in some ways, that video is really interesting, but it's also the video I'm the most, like, afraid of about on the channel, because of the fact that I'm talking in very broad terms about a culture I'm not that familiar with. Like, I don't have enough data to really say this point. It's an interesting thought, but it could probably be easily disproven by hip-hop heads, which might be why it's good that it's the first video, because most people won't go back and watch it if they find the channel later, but I still think it's an interesting thought. Then How to Kill a Rock Band in 4 minutes and 30 seconds. That one was directly inspired because someone, like, I launched the channel and someone messaged me on Twitter like, hey, have you heard the new Manchester Orchestra album? Because Manchester Orchestra made two of my favorite albums, Mean Everything to Nothing and Simple Math. Then a couple years ago they did the album Cope, which I didn't like at all. So I was like hoping they were going to make a big comeback with their new album. And I went and listened to it and I completely hated it. And this is why, as described in the video. So the most interesting thing about Studio Sanzigen and Kiruminzu. These were both the result of just shows I was watching with May while we were trying to fucking get shit set up and moving into the new place. The Sanzigen one was because we watched ID Zero for the, what the fuck is it called? The Finish or Fail. And I've been thinking a lot about Finish or Fail, and Davu was telling me, like, when he finally watched those videos, because he was late to start watching them, he was like, you should really make these into their own videos. Like, some of these are full-blown reviews that could just be edited a little. Like, you wouldn't even have to fucking write them. You could just edit out the pauses and make it sound better, and this is basically a full-on review. And I was like, yeah, but they're not really, like, in-depth, and they don't make, like, a great point. Usually I'm just saying one little interesting thing surrounded by a whole bunch of just, like, you know, general impressions of the show. And that thought process is kind of what inspired Most Interesting Thing About. And so with the Sanzigen one, it was like the most interesting thing that we had said about ID Zero in the Finish or Fail. I just kind of, you know, boiled that down and then extrapolated some stuff about it and made a video. Kiruminzu, meanwhile, was just because me and May were watching Kiruminzu when we first moved in, and so, yeah, I had an idea about it, and I decided to write a video, since, you know, something had to get written, and I didn't have time to work on something bigger. Digi and May's Ota Cave Expedition. This one, I've said it before, but, like, I've always wanted to do a pull a thing off the shelf and talk about it video, but there's just no way to justify the pulling off the shelf part of the video to me. Like, unless you're going to do it in an entertaining way. And I've watched, like, AVGN do it, and he's really funny, but he's also got way more production. He's putting way more effort into it. I wanted to do it as, like, something I could rattle out anytime. Just, like, you know, pull something off the shelf and talk about it. But just filming myself pulling something off the shelf feels so tacky, and it's like, why even waste your time at the start of the video with this, you know? Why not just get right to the point? Why not just review the anime? Why do you need to know that it was on my shelf as opposed to something I just watched for other reasons, you know? But then, when I have the gimmick of I'm showing this stuff to my girlfriend who's never seen this shit, and she's just curious about it, so she pulls something off the shelf and is like, what the fuck is this? And I'm like, oh, let me tell you the tale of this DVD that's on my shelf. That's way more interesting to me. So basically it was finally finding a justification for this, and I got the idea for it because when we were moving, you know, she was helping me pack all my shit back at my house, and she kept just, like, examining stuff. Like, she'd pick up a DVD and just, like, stare at it for a while, like, wanting to know what it is, or pick up an art book or something. And I was like, oh, man, like, if I could turn that excitement into a video, it'd be perfect. So, yeah, I mean, that's not the strongest video she and I have done because it was the first one where she was really on camera, like, doing stuff other than the finish or fail. But I'm excited to do more because we've done all these Let's Plays now, and she's gotten much more comfortable talking and shit like that, so it should be pretty interesting. And then we launched right from that into rating every Pokemon design. And I think this happened just because May and I were talking about Pokemon, and I was telling her that I had literally done this before. Like, I made these images on Tumblr, like, 4 years ago, where I took I took sprite sheets, like just a page with all the sprites from each gen on it, and I just gave a 1 to 5 rating to every single Pokemon in every gen. But when I looked at it like a year later, I felt like some of my ratings were unjustified, and some of it was based on the shitty looking sprites that I had, because some of the sprite sheets weren't very big. So I wanted to redo it, and she was like, you should do that as a vlog. And I was like, oh, you're right. That's a great idea. You're now trapped doing it with me. So we did that, and because we did the first 2 back-to-back, because we were excited about it, and released them one after another, and I was like, oh, I'm going to release one every day, we then trapped ourselves into having to do it every day, and by the time we were done with Gen 3, we were getting sick of it. By the time we were done with Gen 4, we were completely sick of it, and then we lost the recording for Gen 5. Like, I just hadn't hit record on accident, and it was not there. And it was like 3 hours or something, or 2.5 hours, some ridiculous amount of time. So we had to redo the whole fucking thing, and that sucked. And so we just decided to do all 3 gens, like the last few gens at once, or whatever, just to get it over with. It was still great and fun. Insufferable social media argument, everybody understands. Difficulty begets hot-blooded fandoms was just something I wrote, like, literally with this title years ago on my blog. I just, like, recreated the exact same post, and that one was more about, like, Dark Souls and Mega Man. But people talking about the Fate franchise reminded me of it. But the funny thing is that, like, the Fate fitting into this, like, kind of makes sense, but the way I presented it, because I was still so salty about Fate fans, I presented it totally ass backwards. Like, I made it out like the difficulty is that Fate is bad, and that's why it makes you so hot-blooded to like it, which doesn't make any sense, but that was the gimmick. And then at the end, I explained the gimmick. People still didn't get it. And because people still didn't get it, I got pissed off, and I made the meta hole, which explains this in it. Okay, Manga Mondays. I do want to talk about the life-changing manga of Tidying Up, because that one, I actually, like, me and May then did that. Like, we did the teachings of the book. That's why I sold off a bunch of my manga. We got rid of a ton of clothes we didn't want anymore, and just organized our house better. So I was really glad I read that right after moving into a new place. And then Delicious in Dungeon was a manga I'd been hearing about on A for a while. The Kirby race, except it's just Digibro and it's the wrong game and he sucks. This was just, I opened up the Wii while May was at work one day, because we have her Wii that we took from her house. And I'm just like scrolling through the menus, and she only has one game on there, like one virtual console game, and it's Kirby Superstar. And this was like the day after the Kirby race had come out, which I missed out on because I was traveling the country. So I decided to just do my own and comment on it, and that was hilarious. Then there's Podcast 1 with Ocelot, Digibro, and Kenji the Engi. This is a thing where Pause and Select, Joe from Pause and Select just like messaged me one day and it's like, hey, I'm gonna do a podcast with people in the anime community. Do you want in? And I was like, I guess. And he never gave any more information than that. Then he just invites me into this call, like late the next day. He invites me to this chat, and he's like, here you go. And I noticed that there's guys sitting in there talking. So, but for some reason, I thought the podcast was the next day. So I waited like a whole hour working on other shit, and then I finally jump in because I realized that they're preparing for the podcast. They hadn't started yet, and in that time, Joe had gotten shit-faced drunk. So the podcast is just this really bizarre, like, us answering questions. None of us have talked to each other before. Like, I knew who Ocelot was because he and I had collaborated, but like we hadn't really had any real conversations. And I'd collaborated with Joe, but I'd never even heard of Kenji the Engi. And apparently he's, I found out later, he's not much a fan of me. But I never even heard of him. So, like, we just do this thing. It was really weird, and I kind of ended up taking charge, as I tend to do when I'm in a podcast. But it was fairly entertaining. So that's all the other shit from August. Then we get to this 2 weeks content roundup. So we have How Evangelion Altered Anime Eternally. This is something I've had an idea for a really long time. I've mentioned it before, that Eva changed anime in a big way by, like, creating late-night anime. I talked about it in my Anime Shit Now video, for instance. But, like, I really wanted to, like, show people just how different it was. That, like, there literally was not original TV anime, you know, aimed at, like, otaku or being experimental, and then there just was after Eva. So, you know, I wanted to show that difference there. And then someone had asked me on Twitter if I would make a list of all the interesting stuff that came out after Evangelion, and I was like, yeah, I will. I'll make that a whole video. That's a great idea. And then, this was also partly inspired by the fact that talking to Econ at Anime Expo, where I was, I think I told this story somewhere, but, like, Munchie asked me to red pill him on Gundam. So I explained the whole plot of Gundam to him, and Econ was like, why don't you just make videos doing stuff like this, just, like, explaining Gundam? And I said, because I haven't seen all of Gundam, so the Gundam fans would jump down my throat for getting stuff wrong. And he said, yeah, but they're going to do that anyways. And I was like, you're fucking right! When have I ever made a video where people didn't jump down my throat for being wrong about something? So fuck it. I'll just make it even if I am wrong. Like, maybe Eva had nothing to do with why anime changed. I don't fucking care. It's an interesting video. If I'm wrong, people can point it out later. Because I don't give a shit. I don't care about the responsibility of being right. I just want to make fun videos that I like. So, yeah, I made that video, and I did it unscripted because I knew I could. Like, I thought, if I have to write this down, I'm gonna end up being tempted to, like, watch every show on the list, and I'm gonna try to do all this extra shit, and I was like, forget about all that. Let's just do the research, like, figure out what the shows are, and then, like, read them off. You know, like, get myself a list, find all the info, take some notes, and then do it unscripted. And I thought it came out really well. So I sent it off to Devu, and he did a great job editing it, and a lot of people really like it. So I'm quite happy with it. I think if I had never said that this video and the next one were unscripted, I wouldn't even have gotten shit for it. I don't think anybody would have, like, noticed. Some people would have noticed that something was up. But you know, one of the first comments on the video was like, oh, I'm so glad I forgot you can do amazing written content too. And I was like, yeah, no, it's not. So, alright, next up is the Ain't Yo Shit 3-inch. This was a single that I released on Bandcamp, 2 tracks called Ain't Yo Shit and Get My Bread, Fix My Head. Ain't Yo Shit was inspired because, I think someone had left, I know it was inspired by some shitty comment at some point where, like, someone was talking about just not liking something I made, and I was thinking about how it's not for them, it's for me, you know, and then I really wanted to try and make my own beats and stuff, and, like, when I first moved in, I was thinking a lot about Well Laid and Well Paid, but that album just is kind of out of my depth to produce. Like, what I want it to be is a little bit more than I can handle doing it by myself. And my beat makers have been kind of tied up lately, so I was like, I really kind of want to make a song all by myself and just go over it. So then I had the idea when I was in the car of just a song that's just dark and abrasive, and the chorus is, "This ain't yo shit, bitch," you know? So, yeah, I came up with that, and then I just took, I just, like, fucked around in FL Studio, just, like, fucking around with beats and stuff, like, trying to remember how to make stuff in there, and then see what I could put together. And I used the this guitar solo from the movie Electric Dragon 80,000 Volts and used that as the sample of that as like the backdrop of the whole track. And yeah, it's just a song about me saying basically fuck off everybody. And then the second half is about just being up all night having worked on this song and thinking about just describing what my life is like, and like how I'm happy right now because I'm getting my bread and fixing my head, but by which I mean, you know, by dating this woman, it's fixing the problems that I was having in my head, and if you are not supportive of this, you can fuck off, is basically the tenor of the lyrics. It's a really interesting project, and I'm really happy with how it came out. It came out a lot better than I expected it to, for sure, especially once the vocals were on it. That really brought it together. System of a Down Worst to Best. So this was just a comment somebody left, because right now Anthony Fantano of The Needle Drop has been doing a series called Worst to Best, where he'll take an artist's whole discography and sort of rank it, and he's mostly been covering like really acclaimed bands, especially ones that he's like considered to have classic albums and shit like that. You know, he's done Radiohead and Kanye West and fucking bands like that, you know, and I'm not as into bands like that, but there's a lot of bands that I like that are similarly, like, have a big cult following, like, they're really beloved by their fans and they have a big discography, but are maybe not revered in, like, music nerd circles or in critical circles, but I like them. So someone had left a comment that was like, do worst to best on these 6 bands, and the first one was System of a Down, and I was like, oh, that would be great, you know, that would be so cool, because I know their discography like the back of my hand. So, yeah, I spent a day putting that together, and it was really fun, and that made me want to do another one. So I then did Opeth Worst to Best, and I started working on it, like, immediately afterwards. But Opeth has 12 studio albums that are all an hour long, at least. So that took, like, 3 days just listening to all the albums, and then, you know, putting it together. But I was really proud of my work on both of those, and I'd like to do more. I just haven't decided on the band I want to do next. I wanted to do Mindless Self-Indulgence, but I haven't been in the mood to listen to their albums right now, so. Next up, where should we watch anime? This video became a huge controversy on total accident, because this was just a video of, like, where I think I was sitting around thinking about, like, trying to come up with, like, maybe a topical video idea. And I thought, like, what is everybody talking about right now? Streaming services, that's right. You know, everybody's talking about Netflix and Amazon, but I don't really care because I don't really use streaming services because I think that they're inherently broken and they're not as... Wait a minute, this is a video idea. But, like, originally I was going to script it and have Devu edit it because I thought this is a popular enough concept that, like, people will pay attention. But then I was like... what the hell would you edit onto this? Just like random footage, you know? Like, what would it be? And I was like, I also don't think it's like important enough to write about, so I'm just going to do an unscripted thing and edit it together. So I did that. It's just sort of a podcast that's edited together. And then, you know, I was like, ah, fuck it. It doesn't need video. But I'll post it on the main channel because it'll be more relevant to the main channel viewers. Now, I kind of wish I had just made it an After Dark vlog, because then nobody would have cared, but instead, everybody cared, and it became a huge controversy and gave me a massive headache. I mean, in the end, I win because it got a shitload of views and attention to me, and I probably gained patrons out of it, so, like, it was a net win, but because I am stupid and participate in Twitter discussions and get angry at people, I ended up letting it become a big controversial deal that was a huge headache for me. And then I end up fighting with this idiot for Neverworld, and that leads to utter morons for Neverworld, and half of Anti-Twitter totally missed the point of my streaming video, which was a lot of fun. It was a big cathartic beatdown, because I was, like, really stressed out, like, from the day, like, from this For Neverworld thing. Like, it was really pissing me off, because it wasn't just that he was dissing me, he was messaging Miles of Crunchyroll, like, indignant that they were inviting me to their convention when I was apparently pro-piracy. And so he was messaging, like, he's trying to fuck with my work, basically. He's trying to fuck with my connections. Out of what? Spite? Because he didn't get to go to Crunchyroll? I should have brought this up in my video, because people would have hammered him that much harder for it. But, yeah, fucking piece of shit. So that's why I got so mad that I had to make a video just to clear the air so that, you know, I don't have all these fucking people like Crunchyroll thinking that I am pro-piracy or some shit. Next up, the song Dick Up Out My Bitch. This one came very spur of the moment because Frank JevC, who came to my panel at Anime Expo, because he just happened to be there, and, you know, he and I have both been aware of each other for a while. I rapped over one of his songs before, just on my SoundCloud, and he came up to me, he enjoyed the panel, and I was like, yeah, I'm a huge fan, and we should collaborate. And so, like, it took a while for us both to finally, like, add each other on Twitter and start talking about doing something, and then it was my birthday. My birthday is August 8th. And Frank JevC posted a picture of an 808, which is a very famous synthesizer, and said, you know, today's the only day you can post this, because it's 808. And I was like, oh, fuck, I can't believe my birthday is on 808. My next album's gonna have nothing but 808s on it, is what I said. The next morning, I wake up and check my Twitter, and he's DM'd me a beat that he made me as a birthday present using the Fooly Cooly soundtrack. And I was like, oh my god. So I was just listening to it all morning, and I think just because the way I tend to come up with hooks is I just listen to a song over and over again until I find something that rides the beat correctly. And so I was just sitting there listening to it, and I'm like, when the beat kicks in, I wanted something that's just like, ah, ba, 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 dun, 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 like something really heavy. So I pull my dick up on my bitch so I could come deal with your shit, you know? Just the phrase dick up out my bitch was the first thing I came up with. And then I thought, why am I pulling my dick up out my bitch? It was very timely because this came out right before the For Neverworld thing, and the inspiration was because I don't think it was the night before. It was either the night before or the night before that, but there was one night where I had gotten up, like I'd been really happy all day, hanging out with May, having a good time, and then she went to bed. I came back to the computer and read some shitty comment that pissed me off, and I was like fuming with anger, and then I was like, why am I letting this get to me? You know, like, why am I pulling my dick up out my bitch to come deal with this shit? And so that's what the lyrics are sort of about. Then we get into more music vlogs, hilarious product raps of the mid-2000s. This was an idea that I've thought about before in the past. It's just kind of been on my mind over the years, and I described it to May, and I was like, maybe I should make a vlog about that. And she was like, you should. And so I did. Then 2 music videos with opposite takes on loneliness. This is another, like, direct transplant from an old blog post. Because I've been going through my blog lately and, like, trying to see if there's any ideas that, like, that hold up, you know? Because a lot of my videos are kind of adapting, like, thoughts I've had for a long time, but which have evolved significantly over that time. Some of my old videos are just so, or old posts are so daft, like, they just don't even, fit with my modern take on the world, you know. But some of them hold up really well, and all that. Whoa, sorry. I'm trying to fucking delete this chat thing that's opened up. So yeah, this was one that I, like, just pretty much straight up copied, like, what I had said before, but did it unscripted. And it was from, like, 2008. It's a post literally no one read, because I had a music blog at the time that had 0 readers. So this is, like, the first time anyone's actually seen me make this point about these 2 music videos. Really interesting shit. Fuck You, Rick Rubin is something that's been on my mind for a long time because for the reasons described, I listen to a lot of music he's produced and I hate the production and it gives me a headache. So it's one of those things where, like, I kept thinking about it in my car all the time and being like, I should say something about this. I should say something about this. And then as soon as I had a music channel, it was like, oh, the time has come. In-N-Out is a worthless blowjob, stealing your dad's as if it was easy. The podcast that probably has the least viewers of anything I am involved with, but I love it. It's the show me and Munchie do where we review fast food. This one was live because we were at Anime Expo together. We had wanted to do one the whole fucking time, but, like, we just didn't find a chance. So, like, basically this is the last thing we did before we left. And we had Econ and Nino with us because we just happened to be hanging out with them at the time, and they were like, yeah, we'll come with you to In-N-Out, as well as a fan who just happened to be following us around. Nate had already gone home, so, like, we fucking took an Uber, like, way the fuck across town to get to an In-N-Out, like, 20 minutes away from the convention center, and in, like, a skeevier part of LA. LA is all skeevy and terrifying. Like, LA is a shithole, but I really hate LA. But In-N-Out was also not that good. Like, this is people from the West constantly talk up In-N-Out and Whataburger or whatever, like, as they're so amazing. Like, if you're out here, you gotta eat In-N-Out Burger. In-N-Out Burger beats everything in the East Coast. No, In-N-Out is nothing to write home about. It's kind of shit. So, yeah, we were all just kind of ragging on it. And then we did an illegal fireworks showing because Econ, the psychopath, because this is 4th of July, and there was a fireworks, just like a random fireworks selling thing set up in the parking lot. Econ goes and buys like $30 worth of fireworks. He's like, all this shit. And we're like, where are we going to set these off? And he's like, yeah, over there in the parking lot. And, like, as we're getting ready to do it, a cop car, like, comes up and, like, watches us and goes away. And we're like, okay, let's not, you know. But Econ was so determined that he, of course, let one off anyways. So, yeah, that was a thing, but it's captured in there. It's good times. I was on the Homes and Homeless list, procrastinators, and more insufferable social media. How mastering your craft can make you unrelatable, which was sort of inspired by the Opeth Worst to Best video, because I was thinking about how Michael Achterfeld had said of his latest album, like, it's my favorite album of ours yet, but, you know, it's always supposed to be like that, you know, like, that's it's good to feel that way when it's new. And I was just like, why would he like this album so much other than that he got to do different things? You know, like, the music is totally boring and unrelatable, but he got to do probably sounds he's always wanted to do. So, like, for him, it's about the technical aspect of it that nobody else cares about. So, yeah, I thought that was an interesting, topic. Lyrical Investigation, Kill Rock and Roll by System of a Down. This was another inspired by previous video because I had described what the song Kill Rock and Roll was about in the System of a Down Worst to Best, and I got a whole bunch of comments telling me, no, it's actually about this other thing, and I was like, really? So I looked into it and posted a video about it. Ricksty Minutes, which is the Rick and Morty episodic thing that me and Nate started back when I was at his house. The show came back, so we've been covering each episode. I've been intermittently wanting to and not wanting to do the show, because talking about boring episodes really sucks, but talking about good episodes can be really fun. And doing this at the same time as Made in Abyss was really killing me, which is why Made in Abyss had to die. Like, I was tempted to kill both just because I was like, this is taking up too much of my time doing all these extra podcasts that aren't necessarily amazing. My top 5 extreme metal songs, this was sort of inspired by the fact that I have variably described each of these songs as the greatest metal song of all time a whole bunch of times, particularly the latter 3. Like, I'm often saying A Scream to Express the Hate of a Race or Too Serious or The Space for This are the greatest metal song ever written. I'll always say that if one of them comes on with somebody in the car. And then I would, like, looked through my library to see if there were 2 more songs that would fill out the end of the list. And, of course, my favorite Mastodon song and then there was Silence, which are both songs I've just, like, and then there was Silence I used to describe as just my favorite song outright. So I thought, all right, I'll put these all on a list, and they're all kind of like extreme metal songs, so I'll call it extreme metal just so that people don't bitch at me that there wasn't some metal song they liked in there, but instead they just bitched at me that the songs weren't that extreme. My top 10 favorite guitar solos. This was one that I just thought would be really interesting to do, especially because I kept hearing the final cut and like thinking about how great the guitar solo is. And what inspired me to finally do it was the Hours of Wealth guitar solo from, again, listening to all the Opeth albums. That's why these videos have stayed in like the rock and metal genre so much. It's just that each one has been inspiring more videos to happen up until the point that I haven't made one in a couple weeks because I've been working on other shit. But anyway, I got a couple playlists. My 3 Minutes to Climax playlist, which I actually made like way the fuck back, like not long after the other playlist, the 6 Minutes of Perfection. But I just, like, I had recorded a video like in the same style where it was like in the dashboard of my car and like filmed up through the steering wheel, but I just didn't post it. Like, I don't even know why. I think like I already had other videos coming out that day, and I thought that if I posted this, nobody would actually listen to the playlist because they were too busy watching my other videos. So I didn't post it that day, and then I just never got around to it. So I just made a new version of the video and posted that. And then Sick Ass Beat Changes, which is a playlist I made more recently. That's also really good. Girls Next Door, Kamui, Golden Kamui, the Quarter Centennial Progress Report. This one was obviously a sequel to a video I made a year ago for my birthday. I would have completely forgotten about it. Like, I had thought about maybe doing another report thing for my birthday, but I didn't really know what to say because it wasn't as special as it being my 25th birthday. But then people were hitting me up on Twitter saying, you said you were going to make a progress report for this in a year, so you better do it. So I was like, okay, I'll just, like, you know, address whatever I said I wanted to do in the previous video. So I did that. Alright, so that's everything that I have in these roundups so far, but I've made a bunch of videos since then. I don't want to post another roundup today because it's only been 6 days, but let's look at what else I've put out in the time since that roundup was created. Alright, next we have Digi and May do Wario World. So this was where, you know, May and I had done a few video projects together at this point, and I wanted to see what it would be like to have her doing, you know, in a Let's Play. I was just like, let's see if we can do a successful Let's Play together. We'll just record for like an hour and post whatever we get, because I wasn't thinking of it as like, this is the start of a series. I was thinking of it as this is just a one-off, like, test run, you know, to see how it goes. And if we like it, we can keep playing the game. But we don't have to do it at any kind of, you know, specific pace or anything like that. We can take our time, and, you know, not try to rush through it all at once. And I expected it to be that, like, we were going to answer Twitter questions and shit like that. But once we got rolling, like, it just came really naturally, because she and I talk all the time anyways, and since we were talking about just our personal lives, there was a lot more for her to input on. Like, she doesn't have to, like, come up with an opinion about a show we watched. She can just, like, say what's happening with her that day, or comment on what the two of us have been doing together. So it went really well, and I felt like the longer we did it, the more she was getting into it. I particularly like her performance in the later episodes. Like, everything after episode 1, I thought she got really strong, and it was great show. We were so excited about it that we ended up just recording a whole bunch back to back. It was like, we did episode 1 one night, then we did episode 2 the next night, and then we did 3 and 4 the night after that, I think. Or maybe it was 2 and 3 and then 4 in one day, because 4 was super long. That's probably more likely. Yeah, I'm going to say we did 2 and then immediately did 3 right afterwards. Then the next night we did 4, and then we've, you know, planned to finish it off with number 5. Things didn't go so well because number 5, it turns out, was just a final boss, so we only had 15 minutes of video. Then we recorded 3 hours of us playing Kirby's Epic Yarn, and the recording cut out halfway through. And, like, it cut out in the middle of this story that we took, like, an hour and a half to tell that had all these side tangents and crazy shit and had this huge payoff ending, and we lost that. And so we were just like, fuck it, scrap the whole thing. We'll tell the stories again, because we were kind of, it was difficult because we were both playing the game, so we were constantly sidetracked, and we were just like, we'll just redo it, you know, fuck it. So that was really sad. One of the best audios I've ever lost. So then we got the writer who kept anime weird. So when I recorded the Evangelion video, I came up with this plan with me and Devu, because Devu, you know, relies on the income that he gets from me. And I had not written him anything yet, and I was not feeling inspired to write something, but he needed money. So he's like, dude, you gotta give me a video. So I gave him the Ava one, and I thought it went really well in spite of being unscripted. So then I came up with all these different ideas for the next big video project. Like I had several like huge project ideas, but I wasn't really decided on each of them. Then I decided, because before August started, I was planning to do a Mia Mafova for August. I was planning to post a video every single day throughout August on the main channel. But that plan fell apart because I just didn't have enough time to plan it out thoroughly. Like, I wanted to make a huge plan and get it all done, but I just had so much other shit going on with this post, you know, having moved and everything, that it just didn't pan out that way. So I was like, fuck that. And then I had the plan, what if I record a bunch of unscripted videos and I just give them all to Devoo, and basically he can do them whenever I don't have a video plan for him. So like, here Devoo, here's all this unscripted audio, you just keep editing these until I write something and give it to you. That way you are always employed, the main channel is always active, and when I feel like, when I actually have a video, I can give you that. So that's why I wrote the Chiaki Kanaka one. Like, I made a list of topics that I felt I could do unscripted, and that was the first on my list. So I just recorded that. I thought it came out really well. I shipped it off to him. He liked it. And then, you know, that was that. Now, I didn't end up recording anymore. I don't have the stockpile I'm referring to because I just kind of got bored of that idea and then continued trying to think of bigger projects. So I ended up writing one that's going to come out hopefully in a few days. But, yeah. Has the main channel declined, and if so, what do? This was just a direct response to a comment because it's something that's been on my mind, like, how do people feel about the way the main channel's going right now? And it's weird in a way because, to me, it's obvious that it was just interrupted. Like, that the channel is interrupted because I just had to, like, I just spent 2 months traveling the country and then moved, you know? So, like, there just wasn't time to make main channel content, and once there's time again, the juice will get flowing. Once I figure out my schedule, once I cancel some of these fucking podcasts that I've saddled myself with, once I get everything figured out, then the main channel lives again, as it once did. To me, that's obvious, but to someone who's not keeping up with everything I put out and listening to me explain shit like that, it might just look like the main channel just fucking, like, I don't care anymore. So, you know, I made a video addressing it. The house the patrons built, this was planned from the beginning. I always was going to do a house tour. Just seems like an obvious thing to do. It just took us a really long time to find the chance to decorate the house, because I had all these wall scrolls and posters, and I didn't want to film it until they were all up, but putting up wall scrolls and posters is a fucking pain in the ass. Thankfully, we found this really good double-sided tape that worked really well on all the posters, so, and wall scrolls. That made it a lot easier, because I thought I was going to have to put nails in the wall, and I really didn't want to do that, especially because I would probably have to fill them before we left, but, luckily, I found this incredibly powerful tape that made it all work out. But other than that, yeah, it was just about getting all that shit ready and then filming the house. And then we had to clean it, and that, you know, because we had clothes fucking everywhere. Yeah, and I think that's everything that's out at this very moment. I've got a few more things that are in production, but you'll just have to hear about those next month. See you then.